guess there's a lot in your statement or question, but I'll try to simplify the answer. Is it taken into consideration? Absolutely. I think this plan sets the district up for future boards, future community members to make decisions on changing the outcome. So, for example, if down the road a school board decides they want to consolidate schools, that option is there. If the school board in this community decides they don't want to have open seats for open enrollment, I think we would be set in a place where that decision could be made and that transition could be made. Ultimately, whether funding changes and open enrollment going away, the whole funding mechanism in the state of Wisconsin for schools could change. But I think this community has to make some decisions, and you can't wait for the government to decide to change the school funding mechanism and how they fund schools. It's been in place since 1993, the same way that it's been done. The district operated similar before 1993. Wauwatosa's had anywhere between 800 and 1,300 non-resident students attending the school district since the 80s, since Chapter 220 started. And as we transitioned, because our student of color population got over 30%, where we can't participate and take more new students in 220, we continued with open enrollment. There's a lot that goes into open enrollment and what open enrollment does for our school district as well. If we want our neighborhood schools, open enrollment, the money that comes in from open enrollment keeps our neighborhood schools open. That decision, I think, was made pretty strongly about 14 years ago, that we want our neighborhood schools in Wauwatosa. Again, if a future board wants to make another decision, we're in a good place with this plan so that a future board could make a different decision that something changes, funding, whatever it is. Ultimately, we have 14 buildings in our district. There's great needs, whether or not funding changes, whether or not open enrollment exists, goes away, voucher schools, anything that impacts that, we still have these buildings that need to be taken care of. But we're not addressing in a major way all 14 buildings. There's still options down the road. We identified somewhere in the neighborhood of $350 million of need with the entire plan. This is addressing 124.9 of that plan. So as at some point in the future, when that rest of the plan needs to be addressed, whether it's this board, a different board, those conversations, if the community so desires, can have those conversations. So the key point I'm trying to make, we have flexibility built into this plan to address those kind of future decisions.
Mr. Meyer.
If I may, I can be more specific and cold about that question. I think it's a fair question that if something fundamentally changes in our revenue stream over the next 20 years, what will we do? If this plan were to rebuild and significantly refurbish 9 elementary schools, we would be exposed to that risk. This plan rebuilds 4 elementary schools and does some significant maintenance, but not refurbishing the other 5 elementary schools. So as part of a next phase, if there is a fundamental change in revenue streams, we could, the community could still close buildings to account for those changes if that was the choice the community wanted to take. So I'll repeat, if we were rebuilding and refurbishing all 9 schools, all 9 elementary schools, we would not have very many options if we lost the open enrollment revenue stream. But if we did lose the open enrollment revenue stream with this plan, we could still close buildings.
I think one other thing to point out, I think in this past legislative cycle, the open enrollment reimbursement from the state went up by $100 per year, so 100 and then another 100. So in regards
above and beyond the normal increase.
right. So I think, wow, that's definitely something to keep in mind. If anything, what we're seeing today is a realization that that there should be increases in terms of the open enrollment funding coming back to Wauwatosa. At least that's the direction that we're seeing coming out of the legislature, and we've had our legislative advocacy committee do a lot of outreach on that topic and other topics. So I think it's something to keep in mind too, is that if there was something coming down the road, I think our committee and others in the community would also have the ability to advocate and let people know how that would impact Wauwatosa and other districts like ours that are in our position. Any other community comment?